The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Anna Della Subin, senior editor at Bidoun Projects, author of Accidental Gods on Men Unwittingly Turned Divine. Also on the program today, Blinken to meet with Lavrov as fear of a Russian invasion of Ukraine intensifies. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer plans a doomed rule change to fail to pass a doomed voting rights bill. That should work. New York Attorney General Tish James' court filing states that Trump Inc. defrauded lenders and the IRS. Meanwhile, Giuliani, Boris Epstein, Sidney Powell, and Jenna Ellis get January 6th subpoenas. Puerto Rico leaves bankruptcy still with a ton of debt. Omicron peaking, still breaking hospitals and killing nearly 2,000 Americans a day. COVIDtest.gov is live. Go there now, get your 4 tests. You'll get them in about a week. Meanwhile, Biden administration will distribute 400 million N95 masks for free. Just in a possibility only weeks ago. And lastly, Florida seeks to pass a bill to protect white people from having to hear about racism. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, as you know. That is Hump Day, according to my co-host, Emma Vigeland, who is sitting here with me.
I am sitting here with you, or at least aside you.
And you you coined this whole Hump Day term, is that right?
Yeah, and in fact, maybe this is the last Hump Day.
Really?
Time to potentially let it die.
Wow. All right. There you go.
And only then
You
can
decided-
Wednesday be fully reborn, a phoenix from the ashes.
Not sure what's going on with you today, but
What happened to your camera at the start of the show?
it got a little messed up. I'm a little bit, a little frazzled right now.
I think we should do that every time. It's like a nice 80s intro to the show.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly. This bill in Florida is pretty amazing. All part of Ron DeSantis' attempt to out-Trump Trump. And we'll see if that is effective. But they just don't want to upset white people to have to hear about history. We will talk about that later in the program. I mean, it can be upsetting to read those things. But and a little bit apropos of our guest today and the story of really, I mean, in many respects, for the most part, white people becoming gods, but not totally. Meanwhile, there is going to start a process. I believe it starts tonight, where the Democrats are going to. I want to say that they're going to attempt to pass a voting rights bill, but that doesn't seem to be really what they're attempting to do.
They're attempting to look busy while their boss is in the office, aka while people might be paying attention.
I mean, there is activists in particular, and then maybe other sort of cohorts of people want the Democrats to fight as much as they can for this voting rights bill.
Even someone like Nick Saban came out, Alabama head coach yesterday, West Virginia native, signed an open letter pressuring Manchin to do this. Like, this is
apparently there was an asterisk next to it where at the bottom he said, but don't get rid of the filibuster or something to that effect. And so Schumer really doesn't have, in many respects, most of these mistakes have already been made months and months and months ago. And they've been made by Chuck Schumer. They've been made by Joe Biden. They've been made by Nancy Pelosi. And to a certain extent, if you get on a highway and you head in the wrong direction for 6 hours, and then you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be in a half an hour, you look around, there's not much you can do. And that's sort of where we are at this point. Chuck Schumer is going to call for cloture. The Republicans will filibuster. He will then attempt to change the filibuster rules specifically for voting rights and change a rule to make it a talking filibuster. He does not have to change the rule. There is no real rule about the filibuster not being a talking filibuster. That was a practice instituted, I think it was back in the 70s, just because the Senate leader didn't want to waste time. And it was suspended by Robert Byrd at one point, of all people. I think it was in 1988. I believe it was over a voting law as well. Even then, though, the Republicans prevailed. But Schumer could do it unilaterally. He's going to make Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema take the vote. That's going to make them look bad, but they already look bad. And so this whole endeavor is ostensibly to get people riled up and mad at these two and not hold it against the Democratic Party establishment and the whole party. And now, if this sounds ridiculous to you, I have two responses. One is, look, this is the best they can do. Maybe it will have some political value. If you're listening to me going like, how can the loss of a vote on this have any political value, even though it's going to be 50 Democrats, almost the entire party voting for it, and they lose? How can, Sam, you think that there is going to be some type of like massive wave of pressure on the Republicans or on Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema because of this one vote, despite how much attention it's getting in the media? I say to you, you now understand why taking a losing vote on Medicare for all that was going to get crushed 300 to 100 was a waste of time. There may be some value in this. It's important to some people to have it be done so that there's at least a show that you're willing to alienate Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. But I find it very hard to believe that there's going to be any type of electoral value in this or any type of a larger shift.
Well, I agree with you. And it also speaks to how the Democrats constantly think that they, at the expense of doing anything or changing the rules or taking any political risk, can create out of nothing political value in shaming the Republicans, being like, see, we were defeated on this, but look at how mean they are by voting against this clear and obvious moral provision. The appearance of shaming or morally posturing does not have political value. Wins have political value. And there seems to be an unwillingness to actually grapple with that reality.
And again, these mistakes were made months and months and months ago. You strike while the iron is hot. And incidentally, I didn't invent that that idiom.
No.
You strike while the iron is hot, I think is basically, it was invented by blacksmiths.
Yeah.
So that's not my idea. Here is The Five on Fox. I mean, frankly, if you want to talk about political salience, you do your attempt at getting rid of the filibuster. You don't get rid of it. It should have been done a long time ago. You do your attempt at the filibuster. And then what you do is you just play this clip from Fox News over and over again. If you really want to show how completely insane Republicans are when it comes to voting rights. Let's be clear. One of the key provisions of the voting bills, there's a couple of them that the Democrats want to pass, but in both of them, is a fix of Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was passed in the mid-1960s with pressure from millions of people marching, many of whom were led by Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah, this is disgusting what you're doing right now. How are you politicizing this?
Listen to the Fox 5.
Ugh.
Top that, Geraldo. Top that.
Well, I think that people that invoke the name of Martin Luther King for a political, bald-faced political motive really are lowbrow, because you cannot invoke that name and what he did and that period for a law that says you have to have a voting ID, a voter ID, that every voter has to have an ID. Why is that Jim Crow? Why is requiring or requesting you to have a voter ID to prove who you are when you vote? How is that George Wallace? How is that Jefferson Davis? How is that Strom Thurmond? You know, it is really beyond the pale. And I agree about the Joy Reids of the world. There is plenty of room to disagree without being reduced to labeling your opponent as a racist. Why is that racist? Requiring a voter ID. You know, it's just like the civil rights issue of our time is black on black crime. Let me hear Joy Reid speak about that once in a while, and then I'll give her more slack.
Geraldo, you said it was lowbrow, but for Nancy Pelosi, it's very highbrow.
And she knew Thomas Jefferson personally.
All right, let's put aside
what are they talking about?
Well, they're making Nancy Pelosi's old jokes.
Yeah. Oh,
which
Botox.
I mean, she is. But let's be clear here. I mean, after he says that the main civil rights problem of our time is black on black crime, but just to remind Geraldo, who apparently is already living in his own private Florida, where he's not does not forced to read history that might make him feel bad about himself. The Voting Rights Act was the end of the Jim Crow era in terms of voting. That's why the Voting Rights Act was passed. It was to inhibit the ability of specific states and all states, both specific states and all states, from passing laws that would have a racially disparate impact on one's ability to vote. And I was specific about that. There was already laws on the books that said you cannot say black people can't vote. But the Supreme Court allowed for voting restrictions that were supposedly targeted at what ultimately was a surrogate.
The poll tax,
for black people,
for example.
Poll tax.
Yeah.
Literacy tests.
And now you can look at that today. Voter ID laws.
Voter ID laws, where you may have segments of the population that don't drive. They don't get IDs. Or maybe they didn't have birth certificates. And Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act reauthorized by Republicans and Democrats alike in 2007.
Again.
In 2013, the Supreme Court said they need to rework on that pre-authorization. There were 13 states, I think it was, or maybe there was 11 states and 16 counties across those states that needed to have their voting changes pre-cleared by the Department of Justice because they had a history, a naked, disturbing history of disenfranchising people of color and immigrants from voting. Incidentally, all of those states, not all of them, the vast majority of them, made voting more difficult the moment the Supreme Court got rid of that pre-clearance. But the bottom line is, when you talk about that's not returning us to Jim Crow, it returned us to Jim Crow, like literally.
It's interesting, too, how conservatives do this often. They deflect from, they rely on this like fiction that political reality, they pretend that political realities are static, right? Like, this isn't Bull Connor, as if we haven't progressed and evolved, and the racism and the way that it is portrayed or the way that it manifests itself hasn't changed since Bull Connor was around. That's the only way that they can.
Right. In other words, nobody's got a hose. Nobody's using a fire hose. How can it be racism?
Right.
Yeah, what year did that impulse and desire to disenfranchise people stop? Would be a good question for these people. Like, okay, I guess we did the civil rights, the voting rights stuff too long. What year could we have stopped it earlier?
I think Anthony Scalia said probably prior to 2007, at least, because he said that the senators were afraid to vote against it. And so the Supreme Court had to rush in and reverse it because the senators were afraid to vote against it.
They looked into the hearts and minds of the senators, which that's very strict constructionism there. Yes. Oh, yes. That's thank you very much.
So someone's got to school Geraldo on this. Well, I guess I just did, but he won't hear it. In just a moment, we'll be talking to Anna Della Subin about her book, Accidental Gods, on Men Unwittingly Turned Divine. But first, let me tell you about my divine breakfast I had this morning. In fact, I was going to say I had a bowl of it, but you
put it in the mug?
I put it in the mug. I don't even have any milk. That's the way I go. Healthy breakfast, folks, does not have to be boring. Magic Spoon cereal has the amazing flavors you love, but this is the kicker, without all the bad stuff. Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. I think even Joe Rogan could get away with it. He's on his all meat diet, I think. And there's only 140 calories per serving. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. And you can try the Build Your Own box. The available flavors to build your very own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, which is what I had this morning.
Frosted?
Yeah, because I ate the peanut butter, and I ate the cocoa, and now I'm working my way onto the frosted. They also have blueberry and cinnamon being my favorite, cookies and cream, and maple waffle. There's so many great flavors to choose from, and the best part is Magic Spoon is healthy and delicious. It's perfect for a guiltless midnight snack. It's good if you're prepping for your podcast YouTube show.
Right.
It all works. I mean, and my kids love it too, which has been a big boon for me because breakfast is sort of an easier breakfast to make. Cereal is an easier breakfast to make. And when you can give your kids something that they love to eat, and you don't feel like you're giving them basically a bowl of sugar, that's a win-win in my estimation. Go to magicspoon.com/majority report, grab a custom bundle of cereal, start your new year off right. And be sure to use our promo code Majority Report. It's one word, Majority Report at checkout. You will save $5 off your order. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money. They will ask you no questions about it. Remember, you get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Majority Report. Use the code Majority Report to save $5. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode and, frankly, my breakfast. Check it out. We'll put that link in the podcast and YouTube description. Don't forget, you can get the free half, free of commercials, by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Okay, now I want to welcome to the program Anna Della Subin. She is a senior editor at Bidoun Projects and author of Accidental Gods on Men Unwittingly Turned Divine. Anna, welcome to the program. I'm here with Emma Vigeland.
Thanks so much. It's great to be on the show.
Now, this is not like a typical book that we would cover, but it's fascinating. It is, in many respects, I guess, one element of colonization that has, one factor, I guess, that contributed, that greased the wheels. How would you express that in terms of from a historical perspective?
Absolutely. So what I'm trying to show in the book is that the accidental god has been this completely overlooked, ubiquitous figure at moments of colonization and conquest and revolutionary uprising. And we see him really from, the so-called dawn of the modern age itself, which is Christopher Columbus's arrival on the shores of the New World. And so just from that moment in 1492, Columbus writes that he's hailed as a celestial being by the peoples that he encounters. And then a few lines later, he says, but he can't understand their language. And so this trope that the people of the New World hailed explorers as gods or celestial beings just keeps being repeated with each subsequent wave of exploration, whether it's Hernan Cortez, Francisco Pizarro, Francis Drake, Captain Cook. But then it continues, through the age of the British Empire, we find just scores of stories of British officers who are allegedly being worshipped at tomb shrines or different new religions that sprouted up around colonial officers. And so this kind of repeats again and again over the course of the history of empire.
I want to take and there's two sort of those are two sort of distinct almost eras, and distinct insofar as in that first era, when we're talking about Cortez and we're talking about Columbus, etc., we're talking about people who didn't really, who part of that deification was almost more of a projection on some level, right? I mean, will you explain that dynamic? I mean, you touched on it a little bit. Even though I didn't speak their language, I could tell they thought I was a god. Will you talk about that dynamic before we get into, let's say, what happened to Nicholson in Afghanistan, where there was, I think, less of a lack of communication that made him realize he was deified on some level. But we talk about that first era, because that is used as justification too. I mean, it sort of has this, I don't know, it's almost like playing tennis against the backboard on some level.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So what I'm doing in that section of my book is I'm really tearing apart these myths. And I'm showing, firstly, how they so often hinged upon mistranslations or misinterpretations of language. So in the case of Columbus, the word that was actually being used was a word for something unusual or something exotic. A lot of these moments, peoples were calling explorers by an expression that means something that comes from the sky, which is just a way of saying it's something you don't understand or that, you can't quite place. But so these kind of mistranslations persist. So when Cortez famously, lands in Mexico and is mistaken by the Emperor Moctezuma for being the feathered serpent deity Quetzalcoatl, there's this endlessly repeated trope that the Spanish are hailed as gods. And the word there is the Nahuatl teotl, which also is a word that could really, be applied to anything powerful or commanding authority. But these stories of Europeans hailed as gods really get endlessly seized upon and retold by sailors, by missionaries in their diaries, as they're trying to convert the peoples of the New World to Christianity, just because the stories are so useful as a way of really sanctifying imperialism itself. So they're showing how, the coming of Christians to the New World was providential because the peoples there mistake them for God. So they actually, had some sense that they might have been closer to God. This is one missionary interpretation. And it's also used to justify why an emperor like Moctezuma would give up his entire land to a couple of Spaniards because he recognized him as a god. So they were enormously useful in that way.
The construct, reminds me of like we'll be greeted with candy and flowers type of thing on some level. Obviously not exactly the same, but it's the same sort of justification that is needed. So they project onto the indigenous people they find, and I say the they being the explorers, and by being gods, they take that message back, and it gives them both. It gives them a moral righteousness. We talk about that process that was developed as like it sort of creates a moral righteousness, like. These guys, it's both, they not only are welcoming us as gods, but they're stupid enough to think that we're gods, and therefore it's perfectly legit that we are colonizing them.
Right. Yeah. So, these stories are used to paint a portrait of this new world full of peoples who are just, dying for the civilizing influence of the European colonizers. Like, this is used to show how the New World was deeply in philosophical darkness in a way, and how Christian conversion was, deeply necessary. But what I'm also doing in my book is I'm showing how these foundational myths of white explorers hailed as gods were being told and retold just at the moment when modern ideas of race were starting to coalesce right in that same period. So you have the missionaries arriving, from Spain into the New World, and they're bringing with them concepts from the Spanish Inquisition of limpieza de sangre, or cleanliness of blood, which is kind of ideas of exclusion based originally around religious beliefs against Muslims and Jews, which then, when it's transferred to the New World, it becomes transferred onto skin color, and so the missionaries are kind of teaching this sort of white Christian purity, and the colonizers in the New World are they're slowly beginning to self-identify as white. Originally, they would identify as Christian. And so this is really the kind of moment of the birth of whiteness, just as these myths are becoming ever more amplified.
So is whiteness, would you categorize it as inextricably linked to both, maybe not even Christian nationalism, but colonialism as a European project?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I would say, whiteness kind of grows with colonization and empire. And what I'm suggesting in the book is that what we live with now and what's deeply entrenched in America is a kind of white divinity. And so, there's this whole genre of books which are about white gods. So they retell stories of white explorers who are hailed as gods in the New World. Particularly in the 60s, there was a lot of different titles about these white gods just at the moment when the civil rights movement was at its height. And so these were books that, kids would pick up and read. And these stories of white gods kind of persist right up to today in the archives of white supremacist thinking. These stories continue to be repeated. So yeah, they're very much with us still.
Well, we'll circle around and get to the deification of Donald Trump. That is, I mean, if not the deification, sort of like
flags of him like ripped on a motorcycle with an eagle on his back. That's legit.
But also being God's sort of vessel in this instance. So maybe not full on a deity himself, but certainly like.
And his weird appearance kind of helps that, right?
Handpicked.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the other sort of era, I guess, or genre of this on some level, which is more like when you write about Major John Nicholson, who was a British soldier in Afghanistan. But we also see this in the context of like Douglas MacArthur, and also Haile Selassie and Gandhi. Like this, how do you reconcile that sort of like that concept of the whiteness with like the dynamic with Haile Selassie or with Gandhi?
Right. Yeah. So so many of the figures in my book are white men. But I decided to begin the book with the story of Haile Selassie and the Rastafari religion because in a deeply paradoxical way, Haile Selassie became the god of Black power. And, he's in many ways, he's the most successful accidental god in my book because there are about 1 million Rastafari followers today. And no other figure can really count that such a large number of devotees.
I should say, I didn't realize that his name was Rastafari.
Yeah, so it's
know that. I didn't.
It's really paradoxical though. So Tafari Makonnen is his birth name, and Ross is a kind of title like Duke. But so when he's crowned emperor in 1930, he takes on the new name of Haile Selassie, which means power of the Trinity. And then he forbids anyone from calling him Rastafari. And so he actually says, like, you'll be fined if you call me Rastafari. But then the new religion that forms around to worship him is Rastafarianism. So, that's just one of the many paradoxes. The other is that Haile Selassie himself didn't consider himself Black. He thought he was Semitic. But still, across my book, like figures are constantly taking on meanings and agendas that are so opposite to, their own personal selves.
But how does so that dynamic where this is, I mean, it's a distinctly different dynamic where you don't have someone like Selassie or Gandhi in that instance, or even like the Nicholson or MacArthur, projecting onto these other people that they're a god. I mean, like they're not, it doesn't have the same utility. It doesn't seem to have the same utility that it would for, let's say, a Cortez or a Columbus or for other colonizers, because they're not looking necessarily to colonize, I guess. I mean, MacArthur arguably, can you tease that out, that sort of that paradox there, and then we'll get on to the liberating sort of aspects of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book, the deification, I'm arguing has been this kind of powerful form of resistance. It's created theologies of emancipation and liberation for groups like the Rastafarians, but it's also been used as a tool of imperialism and oppression. And so sometimes both things are happening at once. So in the case of the Brigadier General John Nicholson, so, you know, he's this kind of towering war hero who's known for being exceptionally violent, just like, you know, probably the most like vicious, angriest god in the book.
And we should say this is 1830s, I think it is.
Yeah, he dies. Yeah, he's killed in the Indian Mutiny, which is in 1857. But so this religion forms around him while he's still alive in the Punjab, and they call themselves the Nicholsanies. And, you know, on the one hand, the British, you know, historians, scribes of empire love the story because it shows like the kind of worship of the British presence in India. But on the other hand, for Nicholson's worshippers, it was kind of a way of appropriating his own power for themselves, you know, like how, you know, it became this kind of form of resistance of like taking the most violent, you know, psychopathic colonizer of them all and you know, trying to reach out to partake in some of his power.
It was there's like a Colonel Kuntz, the guy from Apocalypse Now quality to this guy. It feels like that the cult grew up around him on some level, and it was a way for them to empower themselves, I guess. And so what of Macarthur? Tell that story as well.
So Macarthur is an interesting figure because he is actually deified in 4 different places and ways all at once. And, you know, he's like this American icon, kind of famous for his vanity and his aviator sunglasses. But he actually takes on these different incarnations that are very opposite to, you know, his own self. So in Panama, when American troops descend to build the Panama Canal, they unleash all of this destruction on the land and diseases and displacement of peoples. And so among the Guna people, some shamans decide to construct a 6-foot idol of Macarthur to use in a kind of curing ritual, and as a way to kind of wield Macarthur's own power against the destruction that America has brought to their land. And so this happens a couple of times. There's actually one of the discarded Macarthur idols in the Museum of Natural History in New York and a few other museums. But that's just one incarnation of his divinity. In Japan, after the fall of the Emperor Hirohito, Macarthur begins to fill the void that Hirohito left behind, because he had once been recognized as the living god. But then Macarthur starts receiving these kind of floods of offerings and letters, which was, you know, people in Japan were kind of trying to make sense of the strange, like stunning defeat that they had suffered. So they were refashioning old religious ideas to fit new circumstances. And then in Korea, the spirit of Macarthur begins to haunt North Korean shamans who fled during the war, and he starts possessing their bodies and directing him to walk to his statue and pay homage. And then on the other side, you know, in Melanesia, in the archipelago of Biak, Macarthur enters this myth about this prophet called Manar Makari, who will bring an end to sickness and death. And so there are four very different ways of being divine in Macarthur's case.
What is this about? What is that? Is that just that people are looking to sort of in the wake of conflicts or in the process of conflicts like that, where some massive power comes and intervenes in your society, you're trying to there are parts of your society that are trying to reconcile this, and so it's sort of like, if you can't beat them, join them, or just like like some type of less I guess more, I guess, just easier way of accepting this level of dominance? I mean, it just seems so odd to me.
Across all these stories, apotheosis kind of happens at moments of loss or moments of rupture or lost sense of self. And what I'm kind of suggesting in the book is that the sacred is this thing, this tool that people can reach for in moments of great oppression, when there's seemingly nothing else there. It's, religious ideas have just, have been this kind of profound form of resistance and emancipation, even in the most seemingly unlikely ways. And for me, I think it's deeply, what I'm doing in the book is kind of hinting towards a kind of more political theology kind of approach, that all politics is actually a metamorphosis of the sacred in new forms. So you might think that like these moments are strictly political, but actually there's this kind of deeper current of the religious or the sacred running underneath everything, right up until today and Trump.
Well, I mean, so apply that that theory that you're developing to what you see today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, anyone who watched the footage of January 6th would have the feeling that there's something more than the secular going on. Even just, seeing the QAnon shaman and his horns, like he looked like a mythological character. And so in the book, I'm telling the story of the deification of Trump through this religion that was actually of just one man in India. And he was in a village in Hyderabad. And he decided to worship Trump as his god. And he built a temple in his backyard. And he would do pujas, rituals to Trump, to this enormous idol of him. And a lot of his family members thought he was crazy, but Trump was his god. And when Trump came down with the coronavirus, the story took a really sad ending, because this man, whose name was Busa Krishna, decided to go on a hunger fast. And then the day that Trump declared that he was cured, the man actually died. And so this story was in the New York Times and it got a lot of attention. And for many people, that's like a recognizably religious form of Trump worship. It checks all the boxes of temples and hymns and everything. But what I'm suggesting is that actually these currents are happening much closer to home, but we don't always see it.
But why are people doing that for Trump and not, let's say, Biden?
I wasn't joking when I said part of it's his appearance too. Like, he presents himself also as otherworldly and like almost ageless in certain ways. His hair stays the same. He's orange all the time. Like, he looks a little different.
What is it? Where is that? I'll buy that as much as anything else.
That's one part, I would guess. I don't know.
Does it have to do with the figure or the followers in this instance?
Yeah. So, there is something that just seems so inviolable about Trump, where nothing that he says or does could really have repercussions, or nothing kind of sticks, and I think that has infuriated many of us for a long time. but it is profoundly more about the followers. So in my book, like, so many of the figures, you just can't understand why someone would choose to worship them. I guess most, prominently is Prince Philip in Britain, who is this kind of often, or was this kind of often ridiculed figure, famous for his gaffes. You would definitely not think of him as the first candidate for a god.
But how does how does capitalism fit into this though too? Because if, say, we're talking about Trump, right? Like he also is a god for his followers, a seemingly godly representation of earthly wealth, which seems to, I don't know how that connects to the larger context, but that's another thing that I think is interesting to flesh out.
Yeah, well, in many ways, in my book, I kind of am thinking about capitalism as this kind of enormous cargo cult that we all participate in. Like, the Prince Philip worshippers have often been called the cargo cult, but it's really, the British and American empires who are kind of spreading this doctrine of capitalism, which Trump really epitomizes in many ways. But even like the word money itself has a sacred divine origin. It comes from the epithet for the goddess Juno, Moneta, which meant like the protector. And so this goddess would watch over the value of money as it was being minted in her temple. And so, so this connection between money and the divine just runs as deep and as ancient as the word itself.
This is all really fascinating. The book is Accidental Gods on Men Unwittingly Turned Divine. Anna Della Subin, we will put a link to that at majority.fm. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much. It's great speaking with you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. There you go. I mean, it is, there's something about the Trump followers. I mean, Obama was definitely a celebrity. Mm-hmm. But you never heard, we're going to put Obama's face on Mount Rushmore in the way that you did about Trump and the way that you heard about Reagan. I mean, they were trying to put Reagan, they were trying to do this to Reagan really up until the day Donald Trump got on the scene.
And part of that is just the voters that those different politicians covet, right? I mean, Reagan
covet or attract,
but I mean, it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing.
Yep.
And in my opinion, it seems it is quite deliberate on the Reagan and Trump side.
I think it's pervasive throughout America. Like, we were talking about, it basically moved from the creator to job creator. And I was reading something about low-income neighborhoods, and it was a list of things that would be really good for it. But one of them was a startup hub, like to create startups. And like when we talk about the cargo cult element of capitalism, like that's totally what it is. First of all, startups are not a way out of poverty. It's harder than ever to create a startup. If you actually look at the numbers on this, like it's monopoly has been the story, not like new startups. And so, I mean, this really is like, and it depresses me when I remember like family members like, oh, we want to have a little more money, so let me think of an idea to patent or something like that. It's I don't know. We're all at part of this cargo cult.
Some type of let me figure how I can win the lottery.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, there it is. We're going to talk in the fun half about this wonderful Florida bill that is, I think it could very well become law. Also, a nice, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Anecdote about the Orange County medical director. He got put on paid leave, and you can only guess why. We will talk about that. Also, go through what to expect with Schumer. We're gonna get a guest on to talk about what's happening with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, it sort of has a feeling like we're just sort of sleepwalking into as a country into a war. I don't know what we're supposed to do about this other than not get into a war. I think that would probably be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
But we will talk about all that and more. We will take your phone calls. We will take your IMs. We will remind you that it is your support that makes this show possible. When you become a member of the Majority Report, you not only support the free show, you get it free of commercials, and you get the fun half. It is you guys that keep this show alive. If the members were to go away, we would also go away. So thank you to our members. You can become one at jointhemajorityreport.com. In the meantime, you can also get some Just Coffee. JustCoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY. Get 10% off. Delicious coffee. Get the Majority Report blend. Or get the WTF blend if you've got to. Also, you can get the merch at shop.majorityreportradio.com. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Yeah, tonight Ben Burgess on to talk about his Christopher Hitchens book, and we'll also be touching on voting rights and MLK a little bit. So tonight, Patreon Just Left Reckoning. We're gonna get political.
You're gonna politicize?
We're gonna politicize
MLK.
Yep. And we're gonna bring to light even more things that Steven Crowder is gonna be uncomfortable with in his legacy.
God, do you really, really think that Martin Luther King would like to be invoked when it comes to things like voting rights or dealing with poverty or
being grown up about W.B. Du Bois being a communist? Or Du Bois?
Ooh, that's a teaser. Yeah, no, I mean, conservatives literally think MLK is one of those live, laugh, love signs on like a wine mom's wall. That's what they think he is.
Folks, we'll see you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5/8. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey! Shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
back, Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. Well, Matt and Bradley are here too. We're all just looking up, trying to figure out what band was banned in Boston.
What a band? That's probably fairly broad.
No, there was a specific.
Sam thought it was Three Dog Night, which we tried to say Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Like that's not enough. That's not enough.
Like Three Dog Night was banned in Boston.
Ooh, how Led Zeppelin got banned in Boston, or Gigi Allen too, but that was a little bit later. But
Gigi Allen did.
Gigi Allen, yeah. Led Zeppelin in the '70s banned.
I thought Three Dog Night did too, but maybe not. Maybe.
What was it for? Like the lyrics or the drug use by the band?
Dude, you couldn't even buy liquor in Massachusetts on Sundays up until like I don't know, like 10 years ago.
Why is that? That's not like
Puritans, dude.
Still?
It's still like that in Vermont.
When I was a kid.
It's like that in Vermont, right?
You go to a packy run in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah.
What are Puritans doing these days?
They're just hanging out, keeping you from doing bad stuff
on Sundays.
Yeah.
Have you been to Utah before?
I've been to Utah.
Yeah, it's harder to get. That's the hardest place to get alcohol. Not a hot take, but when I was, I went skiing there as a teenager, not quite 21. It was real difficult.
The South is apparently a nightmare.
Search for me and my step siblings. What?
They have full dry counties. They have dry counties in some dry counties. I think still in Minnesota, but like in the South, apparently all over. Just no booze here.
There's a New Jersey county nearby when I grew up where pretty much everything shut down on Sundays, and I don't think you could buy alcohol, which is not the place you'd think.
Stay home, watch football.
Yeah.
Truck Nuts. 420. Hello, Sam and MR crew. By any chance, you guys see the awful Steven Crowder skit where he was in full KKK garb? Was that recent? I don't know. I have not seen it. Aaron is not cool. If Hump Day ends, I will end my membership. Whoa.
Whoa. Okay. Wow. I'm sorry.
Dan the Birdman, you should listen to your Friday intro about Hump Day. Oh, I don't even remember it. Leach, it's me and my husband's 2-year wedding anniversary today. Can I get a shofar to celebrate? Much love to you all from your queer Minneapolis supporters. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Weed scientist, most people want to see the Democrats fight for literally anything. Defense extraordinaire. What do you guys think about Bernie floating primary challenges for Manchin and Sinema? Seems like a nothing burger against Manchin, but Sinema could lose pretty bad. Yeah, I think that's true. But you gotta threaten both of them. Speaking of elections, what are some of the 2022 races that Dems have a chance of retaining winning? Have a great day. I went over the 10 races, and off the top of my head, I don't know if I can name it, but like Toomey, there's a chance in Pennsylvania for a pickup. You got to defend Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire.
So and Fetterman still, we haven't had that primary yet, right?
No.
In Pennsylvania.
Nevada is going to be an important one to hold. Ohio, potential pickup. Potential.
Yeah.
It's going to be tricky. Can Demings beat Marco Rubio? Probably not, but maybe. What else we got? Warnock
Wisconsin?
in Georgia.
Wisconsin
Ron Johnson is retiring. That's going to be an open seat.
No, he's running again, I think.
I'm sorry, he's running again, but he's an empty. What I meant to say is he's an empty suit.
Yeah.
And so those are the places to look. I gotta check my list again for the. There's about 4 other races. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what those are. Tom Tillis, I think, is up for re-election in North Carolina. He's been laying low as of late. I gotta double check.
No, I think Richard Burr is retiring.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay. Fierce deity. Chuck Schumer went up there to complain about the rule. 6-foot bear. Emma, just a quick update. You might have seen this already, but the Pat McPhee show brought on Dr. Drew to bolster the claims made by Rogers some time ago. McAfee starts off asking him the ridiculous question, I don't know any of this stuff. Why do people like shitting on you?
McAfee, I mean, that show I liked at the beginning because he's a funny guy, but he is like the most sycophantic of any of these podcast hosts. And his number one guest every week is Aaron Rodgers because they're buddies. So, of course, he's going to twist himself into pretzels trying to make Rogers' pseudoscience claims have some water.
There you go. Charlie, how can the party draw a distinction between them and Manchin and Sinema when they brokered the signature infrastructure deal? I mean, I agree with you. Is this me? Democrats fail, Republicans are shameless. You cannot shame the shameless by failing, but it's the Democrats' go-to method of governing. Dear Geraldo, voting is a right guaranteed in the Constitution. We do not demand IDs to exercise our rights unless it specifically says so in the Constitution. Voting is not a right guaranteed in the Constitution. It is not. That is why you have the Voting Rights Act. That's why you need the Voting Rights Act. The place Macarthur was most deified was in his own mind. True North Politics. I put $25 on the Bills. One question, Emma. Is that a big enough bet? Would love to hear Sam's take, too.
That's the one game of the outcome I'm proud. Well, geez. There's some great games this weekend. I don't know. I think that Chiefs-Bills game is more of a coin flip, and the same with the Rams and the Bucks game. But I'll be betting on props, maybe just not the outcome.
You'll be betting on what?
Like props.
Props? Probabilities?
No, there's a special like bets on certain details of the games.
Yeah. Like
why do you call it props?
It's called a prop bets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like in terms of, you know.
Yeah, no, I get
Brady
it. Like what's the exactly. What's the ratio of touchdowns to interceptions or something like that?
No, that's too specific. It's just, I'll tie them together, Brady over 230 yards and Brady has 25 completions, or maybe if I think the game plan is going to be more like they want to keep Brady off the field. Like, I think that the Rams are likely to try to run the ball a good amount. Although now when I think about it, they have Vita Vea. I'm doing this on the fly, but I sit down and it's not like I come out of this stuff. This all comes out of my brain. I read experts who do sports betting online, and you can like figure out how the game's going to go and where the best odds are and stuff.
Right. Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Shit.
I heard you, Emma.
So what? Hi, Josh. I can't hear you.
I'm so upset right now that I can't even be happy about Matt Nagy being fired. This is how much this mayor is pissing me off.
Oh, and here in New York?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting my certification training. Actually, I started yesterday to be a teacher, high school, English and special ed teacher.
In New York?
In New York.
Fantastic.
Josh, can you talk a little louder into your phone? Do you mind?
Oh, can you hear me?
I'm having trouble.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but
okay.
Sam seems to be fine. So
I can hear you.
Okay.
All right, cool. So I already feel burnt out, and I haven't even started my certification. I mean, I guess I just started my certification training, but I've been working in after-school programs, teaching kids, and it's just for the last month, it's just been like, it's like, when am I going to get COVID, not am I going to get COVID? And I think teacher Lauren talked about this as well, but it's the amount of times that I have to tell third graders to put their masks on or keep their masks on is and it's not their fault. They can't wear them. That's the thing. And even a kid came up to me and was like, I really want to be able to wear my mask, but it doesn't fit. And it was like my heart was broken. And, I don't think anything's going to change because I don't think they're going to stray from their path now. And infections do seem to be going down. I think what people don't get is that the hospital beds, children's hospital beds are completely overrun and kids are dying from non-COVID reasons. So why the fuck we're having in-person learning when there's not enough teachers, not enough kids to go to school, and you're sending, some teachers who are high risk, like me, I have asthma, into like a zone where they can get COVID very easily because, again, the rates, they don't supply people with N95 masks either, or the kids. It's like, it makes me want to quit, and I genuinely got into teaching because I love it. I'm sorry to just go on a rant here, but it's heartbreaking for me to be starting this way in a lot of ways.
Well, my heart goes out to you. My son's teacher was not in class until 10 days into the first. His principal was out the first week because of COVID. It's like sending my kid to a private school. There was, I think, 8 kids in the class, like a third maybe of his class was there. It's sort of absurd, but they seem to have basically just decided we're going to let it rip. We're going to run out the clock. And I think, frankly, in 3 or 4 weeks, at least in New York, I think the numbers are going to go down, probably precipitously. People will have died. People will have gotten long COVID. People have been sick for a month more. I mean, my heart goes out to the teachers because there should have been by now some type of contingency to allow for. I can understand the idea, like we want the kids to be able to go to school, and I understand the motivations behind that, both the ones that are sort of like creepy because we want people to be able to work, and ones where parents are just want their kids in school for socialization and for learning reasons. But we should have had almost 2 years into this some type of contingency plan where if we hit a wave that, and particularly one this would have been the perfect sort of situation to deploy an ad hoc, but planned, we're going to do a 2-week thing. I don't know, when I was a kid, we had the blizzard in 1978, we missed 2 or 3 weeks of school because kids couldn't go to school because no one had been able to shovel the sidewalks. And they were afraid of having kids walk on the streets when the streets were so narrow that there was a kid who was going to get hit by a car. And so we didn't have school for 2 or 3 weeks. When you have a year at least to sort of ramp up, there should have been just like a system where we can flick a switch and say, okay, we're going to do remote learning, or we're going to do remote learning option, or, we're going to set up a system where we'll have already pre-screened teachers who are either, self-identified as vulnerable or whatnot. I mean, I'm sure there's some teachers who would be like, I'll go in, but I would imagine it's not necessarily the majority of teachers. Can't ask them to, but we could have planned this out. But everybody seemed to think like this is just going to go away, so we don't need to come up with a plan. And it's like, well, I mean, it's probably worth coming up with a plan just for, I don't know, COVID 2024.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to say, no teacher likes remote learning. I hate it. I did it. And as a teacher, so much of my job was not teaching kids, but making sure they had their Google Classroom set up, or one kid had to type his essay to me over a Zoom chat. And he wrote a very good essay, but it would have been better had he been able to write it in class or take it home with him, write it on his computer. And so all this shit is terrible. And I'm not advocating for that, but for at least a 2-week period would have been great. And it's just one kid came up to me and was and this was before winter break, but right as everything was starting to we were in our oh shit moment. And she's again, really sweet kid. She's I was exposed to COVID. And I was what are you doing here? I know you're vaccinated, but why are you here? But yeah, it's really frustrating. And I guess the last thing I'll also say too, for me, I'm really starting to see how, and I know Biden is our president. I'm really starting to see through this, the handling that Biden has done, how Bernie would have been a much better president. And I don't think it's just like his ideology. Bernie is much better at getting information out to people than Biden is.
Mm-hmm.
He put out like an Instagram thing, I think it was like a week ago, talking about why we need N95 masks. Like
he was the one that introduced this bill in the Senate, and now the Biden administration kind of took the cues from them.
Yeah, but like he literally says like, okay, here's the amount of time it takes to get infected from an N95 mask versus a non-N95 mask. And it was just like these basic like things of information that are valuable to all of us, I think, beyond the policy set, beyond the fact that he wouldn't have hired a CDC director who basically took their cues from Delta. Like, it's like they've just done a fucking terrible job of communicating everything. And it's left like a lot of people who are frontline workers, like basically off to fend for themselves. And it's terrible.
Yeah, and I think we're at the point now where maybe it's fair to say this in 3 months, but that Joe Biden, one of the concerns I had about a potential a Bernie presidency, and I probably had that concern more than I would have had with a Warren presidency, but I would have had a similar concern with her presidency as well, was like, how much stonewalling are we going to get even from Democrats as to what they're going to do? But it turns out that despite his assumptions and his proclamations, Biden couldn't get it done either. I mean, I don't think that there is anybody we could have elected to the presidency who wouldn't have gotten that COVID relief bill at this point. I think anybody, like literally, you could have put in anybody, and that COVID relief bill is going to pass in February or whatever it was. And then beyond that, I have total faith in Sanders and Warren to have made great judicial nominations. I would probably say better ones than Biden would have. No reason why the Senate would not have gone along with that. And certainly they would have been better on executive orders. I think that was clear from the beginning. But the idea was that maybe Biden could get a piece of somewhat transformative of legislation through, but they blew it. They blew it. They blew it based upon even their own expectations. You don't come out and talk about a $7 trillion bill and then get down to 3.5 trillion, then get down to 1.7 trillion, and then have nothing pass. And that was your plan. No. And they failed even on their own terms.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I just think in terms of like the information, I can take Bernie's information and go to my boss and be like, we need N95 masks for everyone, right?
Yep.
And like, I just think Biden's failure, and it's not even like an incompetence, it's more just like he doesn't want to piss people off. He doesn't want to make this announcement. And like, meanwhile, like just Bernie, that information that Bernie put out, huge for me, because like then it makes me like realize, okay, these are the things I can do, these are the things I can't do, and these are why we all need to give like these kids N95 masks, because like then the rate of transmission will decrease a lot.
A lot.
I think it's like 25 hours. You basically need to spend a whole day with someone with an N95 mask who's infected.
Yeah. My son has been in close contact with multiple people at school and during the Christmas vacation. And he is just really on his own accord, very, very, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Diligent about mask wearing. And I got him some KN95s a long time ago, and I'm convinced that those have made a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
the call, Josh. Hang in there, man.
All right.
Yeah, hang in there. Sorry about all that, Josh.
I am that the audio is out on the app.
No, then they said never mind.
And then they said never mind. So, just I'm being responsive. Call from an 850 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, Bob Bob from Florida.
Bob from Florida.
Yeah.
What's on your mind, Bob?
Okay. I understand you're changing your position on the Kennedy assassination.
Sorry? What?
And are you changing your position on the Kennedy assassination?
I got to be honest with you. I don't know that I had a position on the Kennedy assassination. What do you perceive my position to have been, and what do you perceive it to?
You were an agnostic at one time. Agnostic. You said that.
Okay.
Similar to not having a position.
Right.
Yeah. But not exactly.
Well, Bob.
Anyway,
let's. I mean, I'm not invested in this enough for it to be some type of gotcha situation. So tell me what you want to talk about.
Yeah, isn't the CT, the conspiracy theorist, isn't that basically a libertarian position?
What?
That conspiracies exist?
Yeah.
Bob,
they're almost all anti-government.
I mean, are you? Hold on. He might be pointing to when Matt and I talked about this. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, then direct that towards us.
I wasn't here that day.
Direct it towards us.
I would just say quickly, I think being critical of the CIA is not the same as just being a libertarian anti-government person. I think the CIA is fundamentally incompatible with democracy.
With democratic representation, and was created for anti-democratic purposes.
A month to the day after Kennedy was assassinated, Harry Truman said we need to look at what we're doing with the CIA and maybe consider wrapping that whole thing up. But anyway, what about libertarianism?
That's true too. But I'm a debunker, and I'm a couple of years older than Lee Harvey Oswald, and I've listened to this stuff for 58 years, and every position is debunked, and they bring up stupid things like, Joe Rogan the other day.
Let me ask you this, Bob. Let me just ask you this, as a debunker. Why do you think they haven't released the information yet about Kennedy's assassination? Why do you think there's still any of that material is being delayed?
Why did they push it to 2032? Is that it?
Yeah, that's true. The CIA is secretive. They've been secretive from their beginning.
I understand. But why do you think that they're not releasing this information?
Well, for one thing, they don't want to show their incompetence. And for two, they don't want to show their methodology. And three, they're afraid of other countries.
What is the incompetence that's associated here? What is the incompetence, do you imagine?
Oh, I don't know. Kim Philby, Iran-Contra.
No, I'm talking about the Kennedy assassination. They're not releasing the Kennedy assassination documents. And why do you think that is?
Like I say, they might show up their incompetence, or
you're trying to say that these documents would show that they were completely unaware of Lee Harvey Oswald's desire to kill JFK? Because, dude, that's not true.
No,
They've been monitoring.
The FBI.
Okay, keep going.
The FBI informed the CIA about Lee Harvey Oswald.
They didn't just inform. They had been monitoring Lee Harvey Oswald and had very detailed records about Oswald for at least 4 years or something like that.
Let's see, 4. You mean when he was in Russia?
Partly, yeah.
Okay. I can't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was a CIA operative. Unbelievable.
Why? I mean, I'm not saying that
he's unstable. You know what he did in Moscow.
Unstable people could be useful to the CIA.
You don't think
he committed suicide?
You don't.
He committed suicide in Moscow.
Well, he allegedly attempted to. But
he attempted. Yeah. He didn't actually. But wait a second. Why do you think the CIA would not use? I mean, I would imagine maybe Lee Harvey Oswald's not going in. And listen, I'm speculating. I really am not read into any of this stuff. But the general concept that the CIA would not use somebody who is emotionally unstable.
That's putting it mildly. 2 court-martials while he was in the Marines.
Okay, super emotionally unstable.
I mean, this is
the CIA is going to use whomever and whatever that they can work out to use in any type of way.
But the point is, though, Bob, if we don't have this evidence to debunk it and it keeps getting punted, how are you debunking our speculation on this from the show?
Also, does Jackie Kennedy need debunking?
Yes, she also does not believe that, and she was the closest to her husband when he was assassinated. She does not believe that
she thinks it was
a
domestic
lone
enemies.
Act. Yes.
Jackie Kennedy said that it was just a simple little communist. She wanted something bigger. She thought that was denigrating to President Kennedy.
So it was out of her. So what you're saying is it was her desire for a larger thing, and it sort of she was being grandiose.
It was pride.
She followed Kennedy's politics very closely.
Right. So you think that's what the tape of her talking to William Manchester would show, is just her wanting to be grandiloquent or grandiose about.
Yes.
But the thing is, Bob, we don't know that. So, I mean,
we'll just have to take the CIA's word for it.
And we have her words for it.
No.
All right. Well, listen, Bob, I don't want to spend any more time on this because we
can't debunk because none of us have the information that's being hidden from us. And you can speculate based on the fact that the information is being hidden, that there's something to hide.
What do you expect to get?
Well, Bob.
What evidence do you expect to get?
Well, we don't know.
We don't know.
It's just the only thing we know is that for some reason that they're withholding it. So it could be just massive incompetence. It could be, but I'm not even making a claim. I'm not even sure what claim you're debunking. We've been talking for 7.5 minutes, and you're debunking something, but I can't tell what you're debunking.
Well, if the only hope left is this CIA's information, everything else has gone by the wayside. It's been debunked.
What has been debunked?
Now, this is your last hope, which is information from the CIA.
Wait, what has been debunked, Bob? I don't even know what you're talking about debunking.
Name one. Grassy Knoll. How about the Grassy Knoll?
What about the Grassy Knoll?
Supposing you're a CIA agent and you want to kill Kennedy, do you put a guy in the Grassy Knoll and shoot Kennedy and don't take into account that there will be forensics that will prove that the bullet comes from behind or in the front?
Well, if you're the power structure, you have less to worry about in that area.
Yeah, and this is all too hairy to really get into, but I mean, there's a lot of issues with the evidence. Can I keep talking?
You're saying the government is evil.
But it's also, it's purposefully obtuse to basically say that it was a direct, the CIA often created conditions and the FBI created conditions for the people they wanted to get murdered to be murdered. And it doesn't have to be as direct as what you're saying.
I mean, look, listen, hold on, Bob, listen, Bob, let me just say this, okay? Because I don't, you're debunking the Grassy Knoll. Okay, great. Yes. And you're debunking it by saying it's really unlikely they would do this. And okay, maybe wait, Bob, okay, Bob, I'm going to hang up on you now because I want to end this. But let me just say this. We have time and time again, reams of evidence of the FBI and the CIA engaging in assassinations, engaging in attempts to get really important figures, both domestic and international, to kill themselves, to poison them.
Or to get them killed. It's proven that the FBI did this with Malcolm X, like direct evidence. We have direct evidence of that.
Members of the Black Panthers. Now, would they
Fred
not?
Hampton, they didn't even bother to hide it.
Exactly. Would they not do it for the President of the United States, who some members of the CIA were extremely convinced was essentially endangering the entire American nation by what he was attempting to do with Khrushchev. Okay? Now, everything I just said is a fact. And the only reason why I present it is not to say this is in any way evidence that the CIA was running Lee Harvey Oswald. It is to debunk your just general disbelief based upon the idea that they would never do this. And I'm saying
they did.
I don't know if they did it in the case of JFK, but they did it. They did it for a bunch of other people. Now, maybe they might say, like, look, we'll do this for a civil rights leader. We'll do it for black activists. We may do it for some white guys, too, or we may do it for some visiting dignitaries, or we may do it for white people in presidents or in other countries and stuff like that. But we draw the line at what? Like, I don't know. If you're fourth in succession to the presidency, we won't do it.
It's the CIA and the FBI, they've shown restraint in many instances, right? Like
they literally were just going to kill Assange. The people were floating about killing Assange like blocks away from Buckingham Palace.
I mean, that is, I think, I interviewed what's his face, Isikoff, who wrote that piece, and he was very much downplaying it. But nevertheless, we know that they've assassinated people. We know it.
And they definitely, when they get a little taste, maybe they're assassinating a civil rights leader. That's a gateway drug. Then you start to feel, wow, we can get away with anything.
I would also say this. I think it is wrong, particularly in that era, in the first, 20 some odd years of the CIA, to perceive it as an entity like,
the Chamber of Commerce, or
no, like even the Chamber of Commerce. Like, I think to perceive it as an entity where it's like you're either working for the CIA or you're not. Right. Like, this is not a situation where people go in and punch cards. Osama bin Laden was not punching his card.
Yes.
His time card.
That's what I was trying to say to him.
Right.
Yeah.
There is. And particularly in the first, before the Church Commission, when there was any type of oversight for any of this stuff, it was Wild West.
Bunch of money start fake businesses that are fronts.
And to say that an agency of our government was implicated in any assassination or crime operation or this and that is, in my mind, to say that people associated with it were involved in it. Like, it's conceivable that there are CIAs, if you will, within the CIA. That there are, look, we know that in LA County, for instance, there's been a tremendous amount of reporting. There are gangs in the LA County Sheriff's office. Not gang members who've been arrested or in there. There are gangs amongst sheriff employees who go out and do extrajudicial things. Some instances they're involved in crime. Some instances they're involved in, so-called policing, So this is the way that these type of organizations and agencies work. And we have cliques inside of corporations as it is. And when you're talking about in the first, 20 years of the existence of the CIA, when there is no oversight, when we are in the midst of a Cold War, where you are staffing these with people who are convinced that we are facing an existential crisis and that some lunatic Catholic guy got in there.
And you think he might have stole the election as Nixon did.
And you think he may have stolen the election. And look what he's doing now. He's handing over the keys to the palace to Khrushchev.
He's not doing what Nixon would have done with the Bay of Pigs.
Why is he having these special phone calls with Khrushchev? What are they talking about? Why is he having his place swept for bugs? I mean, come on. You know, like we know that Hoover was had files on everybody, was looking to blackmail everybody. Well, we'll blackmail, but we won't physically harm anybody. I mean,
and then they did physically harm everybody. Those people. I
am not promoting any type of theory right now, but I also think it is horribly naive to argue against any of these theories with they wouldn't do that, because they would.
And that was the argument, Bob. That was what it was.
Also, if we can all agree that conspiracies don't exist, we should also be able to agree that we should abolish the CIA and the rest of the intelligence services.
I think that's also, a good idea.
Yeah, what is the point of clandestine activity in that way? There are conspiracies everywhere else, but in the United States, our government functions perfectly.
Except all those times where they've been incompetent and murderous.
And also,
sarcasm.
Incompetence and murderousness can sometimes also go hand in hand.
Be synchronous.
You did what? Dude, don't you realize that guy's emotionally unstable? Well, he was going to do it, so what? Was that a mistake? Yes. Oh, God. Oh, well. Don't you think anybody's going to check out the trajectory of that bullet? You mean the people that we hire to look at the trajectory of the bullet?
At the naval base, we got those people. They're good. Also, the Luce family bought up all the footage, so don't worry about that either.
I mean, I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know, but it is weird that they won't release that stuff.
So the Ruby stuff, like the idea that everything's been debunked, like I haven't seen a thorough debunking of like Jack Ruby's connections. I haven't seen a thorough debunking of even like Oswald's weird like tour around the world with the U-2 spy plane, and him going to Russia. I mean, like that stuff has not been explained. Oh, and also George de Mohrenschildt, Oswald's friend in Dallas, having George H.W. Bush on his Rolodex. I mean, like if metadata is something that as Jeb Bush wants to used to collect terrorists, it also connects his dad to the CIA, to the Kennedy assassination.
All right, let's leave that for a moment. Do you remember that guy Gary Chambers? He
yes.
got into the city council, right? It was he made a big speech at the city council.
And
we played it a long time.
He ran for Congress and
then he ran for Congress unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
Was it what's his face was appointed to the Biden administration?
The guy from Louisiana,
Cedric Richmond.
Cedric Richmond,
the oil and gas. Yeah.
And now Gary Chambers is running for the Senate, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of numbers he does with this type of campaign. Here he is. It is it's a twofer. It's both a criminal justice reform campaign ad and one that says legalize it. But I think like what's impressive about this too is I think that's going to impress people is sort of people are attracted to boldness.
Right.
Check this out.
Every 37 seconds, someone is arrested for possession of marijuana. Since 2010, state and local police have arrested an estimated 7.3 million Americans for violating marijuana laws, over half of all drug arrests. Black people are 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana laws than white people. States waste $3.7 billion enforcing marijuana laws every year. Most of the people police are arresting aren't dealers, but rather people with small amounts of pot, just like me. I'm Gary Chambers, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
That's pretty strong. That's pretty strong. It's going to be interesting to see if that drives votes. I mean, the interesting thing about this, too, the value of a campaign like this, in addition to it would be great if he won, frankly, but is, we're seeing this right now with the Biden administration where there's an attempt by a certain cohort of ghouls to complain that Biden has moved too far to the left. That's why he's having these problems. When in fact, I don't know if everybody remembers, but Biden was elected because he was the least left of everybody on that stage. This is the way you create narratives and conventional wisdom. Someone like this does better than expected. If Gary Chambers does better than expected in these races, people are going to be looking for answers. Now, there's some people who are going to be looking for any answer other than this guy came out forcefully and talked about criminal justice reform and talked about legalizing marijuana. Other people will say, like, well, people really wanted somebody who was physically big. And that's what it's really got to be.
You can see the flip side. This could do something like what Stacey Abrams' gubernatorial run did for the state of Georgia, which is it sets up this infrastructure that then pays dividends in the future. Or you could pull a Chuck Schumer and say, I'm going to back Amy McGrath, this complete nothing candidate who has zero grassroots support, and ignore the Charles Booker campaign, which had a really late surge because of the pandemic, but he was activating a lot of people in Kentucky who weren't activated in politics before. And so he ran a bold campaign. If the Democratic Party infrastructure, the electoral infrastructure, had put money behind him, we could have seen, because of his boldness, something like what happened in Georgia start to happen in Kentucky. And then hopefully... That's
the point.
Hopefully Gary Chambers can do that in Louisiana.
You got to look at it as a project.
Yeah.
That is not just about this election, but it's about the election that is in 8 years or in 10 years or in 12 years, because that's where we're at there. You need to build an infrastructure. So if you're going to lose with a candidate who will create something that will exist past their candidacy.
And you may not lose, and that also makes it less likely for you to lose. It's a twofer, but the Democratic Party's like, I can't figure it out. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll do Crenshaw in a second. I just wanted to read this from the chat. Orange, the IM's Orange Story. I like David Feldman's new debunker character. Bourbon Socialist says Gary Chambers rolling a wood instead of a Swisher is the biggest boss move possible.
They're gonna no, go on.
One really gets the sense that Dan Crenshaw is having a rough go of it as of late. Ooh. You know, like when he came out, he's like, Dan Crenshaw was like priming himself to be the next sort of Ted Cruz, it felt like. But then at one point he made this sort of like, he sat back and he's like, well, wait a second. What if I actually want like a bigger career than I have now? I'm going to have to appeal to some non-crazy people. And in that instance, maybe I should take this Jan 6. He voted for impeachment, didn't he, or something like that? What did Crenshaw do that got him on the wrong side of everybody?
I think one of the things is he's been saying subsequently that
that Donald Trump lost the election.
Yes,
exactly.
and he wasn't completely in favor of January 6th.
Sorry. Yeah. He didn't actually do anything material. He just said, I recognize that Donald Trump lost the election and we should move past that. And of course, that's the problem. The Republican Party is made up of lunatics, and when you decide like I am a lunatic, but maybe I'm not going to be a lunatic, then they start nailing you for not being a lunatic.
You're not one of us.
And then you start to get a little bit agitated, and you think that people are about to attack you from all sides, and from tall people, short people, old people, and young people. Here's Dan Crenshaw, town hall meeting, being asked a question by a 10-year-old. Watch out for the 10-year-olds.
The most important thing here is that we have important hero archetypes that we look up to. Jesus is a hero archetype. Superman is a hero archetype. Real characters.
Pause. I'm sorry. She is quoting him.
Yes.
She is quoting him. This is the shorter clip. She is quoting him where he was referring to, I guess, archetypes about like who our heroes are.
Yeah, and supposedly before the recording started, it's alleged that she said she questioned his faith in a way, like, I think you're not a real Christian. But that's uncertain yet, but this is...
Okay.
The most important thing here is that we have important hero archetypes that we look up to. Jesus is a hero archetype, Superman is a hero archetype. Real characters too. I could name 1,000. Rosa Parks, Ronald Reagan, end quote. I can't wrap my head around this.
Well, I'll help you. Put a period after the word Jesus and don't question my faith.
Wow.
Okay, that's...
You moron.
Look.
Yeah, you don't talk to a kid like that. Yeah, boo.
Don't question my faith.
Oh, okay.
You guys can ask questions about all of these things and I will answer them. But don't question my faith.
I can question your faith if this is what you said.
That's...
Also, Jesus is not the hero archetype. I mean, he died for our sins. He wasn't beating up on Thanos.
Well, first off, let me just say this. You question his faith, that is a HIPAA violation. All right? You're not allowed to ask that question because it violates his HIPAA-ness. I think that, like, you know, when you think about him perceiving Jesus as a hero archetype, as Superman is too, which I also agree with you. I don't think that, I mean, he didn't necessarily die for my sins, but he, you know, I don't think that people see him as a hero archetype necessarily.
Yeah.
But
he's a martyr more than anything.
It reminds me of like his big, remember his big ad? He had like a couple of ads where he was a hero. So
I was trying to shoehorn that in earlier, but like he literally parachuted from a plane to go after Antifa.
And he dropped down like Spider-Man. Yeah. And like I guess he's like really just on like, how do I work myself into this hero archetype thing? And frankly, yeah, I mean, if I thought that Jesus was the Son of God, which I hope no one's upset about this, I don't. I'd be a little bit annoyed if you said, like, you know, just like Superman.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem for Dan, is because he's got the vet cred, but he also went to Tufts and Harvard Kennedy School.
Oh.
And yeah, I have the podcast.
I was trying to do some nuance, guys. What happened?
And like, I think he tried to go in like the Jordan Peterson lane. It's like, oh, these rubes seem to like this sort of college professor thing. And I don't know if you have it, Bradley. It's him on Jocko Willenick talking about this stuff, and it's like, this is not going to fly to a GOP base.
No. and if his faith is so strong, maybe you shouldn't get so triggered by a 10-year-old asking you a question about it.
See, this is the thing, is like Ted Cruz has really mastered I went to Harvard twice over, but I can still pretend like I'm one of you.
Yeah, I mean, he painted he smeared whatever, like, black on his face, and he went hunting with the Duck Dynasty guy during the primary in 2016. Do you remember that? Yeah, that was, or 2012. I forget which one that was. That's Ted Cruz.
But Ted Cruz is just so personally like unpleasant that I think people like they don't feel threatened by him in a way that Crenshaw, I think they like when he starts to pull rank on him a little bit. It's like, well, look at this coastal.
Let's listen to this audio where Crenshaw like forgets himself on some level. I mean, this is the tough part about, you know, when you're having to play this role that Crenshaw is playing. That sometimes you forget yourself.
He slipped into his DC cocktail.
Dude hung out in Powder House Square, you know, with all the fancy pants over there, and now all of a sudden he's trying to make it like he's you know, just some Texas boy who you know, likes superheroes.
Talking about in the book, I'm talking about hero archetypes. You know, and an archetype is a broader set of ideas or attributes that we sort of recognize collectively. Okay, it's more of a psychological term than anything else. And there are certain hero archetypes. You know, like the Navy SEALs have a hero archetype, and we write about that in our SEAL ethos. It's such a beautifully written ethos, and I have the entire thing written in the book because it perfectly demonstrates what we believe we should be, not what we should do, but what we should be. And that's a really interesting thing. And I note that you look at like a corporate ethos, and if you go to people like corporations' websites and you read them, they're usually something like, we want to be the #1 manufacturer on the West Coast. It's like, that's not who you want to be.
I don't know how far the Jesus thing is.
Well, he said it. He said it a little earlier.
He said the archetypes. He didn't say Jesus, but he.
He's
but
trying
boy,
to
he
play-
also
That's not the register you want to be speaking in.
it's not the register, and he's also just sort of a little bit like just there's something a little bit like droll about that guy.
It's a little Sam Harrisy.
It is a little bit like, I can't believe how smart I sound as I drop my register like this.
Look at us in black and white on
I know, right?
Let me, can we put this in black and white? And let me talk like I'm struggling. Like these ideas are being born in front of your eyes.
Like a volcano of ideas in my brain right now, and I just gotta put it into this microphone and
Witness my brain's majesty.
I'm bursting. It's not just the muscle shirt I'm wearing here.
Did you know I was a Navy SEAL?
Did you know I was a Navy SEAL? Could you tell by my the one-piece stocking shirt that I wore, my lumberjack shirt? But now let me show you how ideas are formed from the cauldron that is my brain.
Superman and Rosa Parks.
Yes, Superman, Rosa Parks.
That's like, how he talks. That's how he talks at cocktail parties, I'm sure. But
the ethos. We had an ethos that was not corporate. Our ethos for a Navy SEAL was far grander.
It's funny because this guy everyone was, I think, kind of like, oh, we got to be afraid of Dan Crenshaw. Now he seems to hate his life a little bit.
It's true. There is a quality of like, God, I made a wrong turn somewhere. I could have been so freaking rich.
I should just stayed in the military.
I could have been sitting on the board of directors of any type of like crazy ass, like this thing is both like a jetpack and also both a delivery mechanism for Amazon and in a way to drone people. And I could be sitting on that board of directors. My whole life would be just basically I spend 6 months in San Diego, and then I travel around a couple of board of directors meetings, and making a bunch of cash. I'd have a sweet ass podcast right now, right? Where I combined the Navy SEAL ethos with like also disruptive activity in the marketplace. And I would combine those two to create a synergistic relationship between the Navy SEAL ethos and this idea I have about archetypes. And also this new product, which is the Uber of kitchen appliances.
Yeah, you lost at the end there. He'd be promoting some sort of crypto.
That's right. And now it's crypto, too. Yeah. Also, I do my own crypto.
It's a crypto that also works as a toaster.
Cowboy suck. Boston accent. Dan Crenshaw sucks at hockey. Sucks at hockey. He's up there in Medford, Powder House Square, sucking at hockey. That's good. Good for that 10-year-old girl. I mean, I don't know that we have the same problems with Dan Crenshaw, but at least.
Will from Indiana says Dan Crenshaw with some serious coked up Kendall Roy vibes going here with his answer. I don't know if.
I don't think he's coked up.
No, I don't think so either. But him like losing it at the slightest critique of him.
He's having a rough day.
I mean, I guess the military doesn't really teach proportional response terribly well.
All right, 2 Florida stories in a row. Let's do this first one. Oof. There is a bill that is being pushed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. It would prohibit public schools and private businesses. Now, this is the AP reporting, from making white people feel discomfort when they teach students or train employees about discrimination in the nation's past. And it received its first approval on Tuesday. The Senate Education Committee approved the bill that supposedly takes aim at critical race theory, whatever that is, though it doesn't mention critical race theory explicitly. And you're going to be shocked to hear this. It passed on party lines. Republicans in favor, Democrats against. Here's the language, at least part of it. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, and I just want to say here, kudos to the Republican Party in Florida for not making all bills written in the masculine.
I was about to say, an individual progress.
Progress. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, does not bear responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. Okay? So if you're a woman who is, let's say, black, you're a black woman, you are not responsible for all the horrible things that black women may have done in the past. Okay?
I am grasping this.
All right. So, or just if you're a white man, you're not responsible for what white men have done in the past, to say like other people.
Okay.
An individual should not be made to feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress.
Yeah, work should be a safe space for white people.
On account of his or her race.
Discomfort.
Now listen. If I start talking about all the mean things that white women did back in the day,
it's illegal.
And if you feel uncomfortable with that, or if you feel any guilt, you will be able to take legal action against me, Emma.
If chaise lounges are not provided for every white person in HR meetings, that's illegal in the state of Florida. People need to be able to lay out and take a nap if they wish. White people.
Now, you should understand, of course, this bill is called Individual Freedom. That's the name of the bill. It's the Individual Freedom Bill.
Except that they're policing how people are made to feel in meetings.
Well, listen, if you are made to feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race. I mean, this is really nuts. I do appreciate them codifying the idea of microaggressions. But the issue is that they are actually saying that if you are told about any aspect of our history, and listen, this seems to me to be indisputable. White people enslaved black people in this country. Now, I don't want to...
That makes me feel discomfort.
Okay.
And you've infringed upon my freedom?
Fortunately, that's why the show is in New York. Because if we were in Florida, you'd have an action against me.
It's time for me to migrate there.
You're going to have to, you could get on your Zoom. That's the big question we got to find out. Like, because if you go on Zoom and you're in Florida and I'm up here and I say that, can I get in trouble under Florida
You're
law?
crossing state lines with your microaggressions. That violates interstate commerce.
Microaggression tourism legislation.
Interstate meanness.
So, okay, so to be clear, in Florida, it will mean that you cannot, in a public school, remember this also applies in a public school, what if discussing slavery and making the highly controversial statement about the history of slavery that white people enslaved black people in this country, that white people sold black people to other white people in this country, highly controversial. How do I know that exists? It's just written somewhere. I didn't see it. But if it makes somebody uncomfortable in the school to hear about that, you can't talk about it.
It's juxtapose conservatives attempting to build like a plush, cushy wall around themselves and their own feelings. And by the way, go to therapy, conservatives. You have a handle of how you can react to other people and how your emotions, like, you have control over your emotions to some degree. But regardless, like, they compare that to how they treated enhanced interrogation when it comes to terrorists. They totally watered down the concept of torture and sanitized it. And yet my feelings need to be protected from anybody saying anything to me that I don't necessarily like.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Robin DiAngelo. I think she said a lot of things that are really stupid and unhelpful and are easily cartooned, but it is kind of a validation of the white fragility hypothesis.
Just a little bit. Incidentally, I want to see if I'm able to, like, this whole thing with Christ dying for our sins. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And also this whole, like, Merry Christmas thing. I don't think so. I don't celebrate it. And so it makes me feel a little bit anguished. Or this whole Christ died for our sins. That makes me feel a little guilty because of my background. Sorry. So general psychological distress. I don't like the holiday season. So can we...
It's illegal now.
Well, now if you go to Florida, now that gender and race are out, the only hatred you can express is class hatred. So go at it.
There you go.
Floridans.
That's only our first Florida story of the day. Oof. Ron DeSantis. Can you pop up what the numbers are in Florida? The COVID numbers, Bradley. Can you see if you can find that?
Which are probably misleading because no one cares and is probably not getting tested.
Well, we may not know the test numbers, but we could probably get a sense of the death numbers. I mean, to the extent that Florida is even recording those anymore. I don't know if they are. Starting to go down in some areas are going up quite a bit. Madison and Alachua counties are starting to grow a little bit. Orange County seems to be getting a little hype. Miami-Dade had a 7% drop from their 13,000 daily average of cases.
They're 82% vaxxed too. So
unfortunately, because the 14-day lag, their deaths are up 146%. 83 people a day, hospitalized. Deaths, daily average 5 deaths. So they're losing a couple of people a day. You've got a lot of people, tens of people in each county that are hospitalized. And the vaccination rates in Miami-Dade, it's 82%. That's the highest anywhere in the state. Monroe County is 75%. And let's play this clip. They have a Florida Department of Health medical director that oversees areas of Orange County, including Orlando. I very well may go to Disney World for vacation with the kids in February. I'm a little nervous about that. It's possible, but I'm happy that there might be some high vaccination there. Was put on leave. Can you imagine why the medical director and the Florida Department of Health might be put on leave? Well, let's listen to this local news report from WFTV 9 ABC.
You say start from 217?
No, I said go to 217.
In Orange County tonight, the State Department of Health just responded to our report that Orange County's top health officer was put on administrative leave. Good evening, I'm Greg Wormuth.
I'm Vanessa Eccles. That move came in the middle of the latest COVID surge. Investigative reporter Shannon Butler broke this major local story and joins us live in studio.
This guy must have gone out without a mask or something.
Is looking into whether Dr. Raul Pino broke any laws.
Ooh.
Yeah, they are, Vanessa, in a statement. They didn't mention Dr. Pino's name, just calling him the employee in question. But reading the statement, it seems they're looking to see how Dr. Pino got information that he put in his email. Pino, in an email, did not tell people at the Department of Health they had to get vaccinated, but he did say the department had to cancel surgery, saying not being vaccinated put staff and others at risk of infection, and he called it irresponsible.
Pause it. Pause it. What?
Has been the
Wait, pause it. This man wrote in an email to healthcare providers that it was irresponsible. In other words, causing them psychological distress and feeling guilty and maybe not feeling good about themselves. And he put this in an email. My God. My God. The horror. The horror.
Basically, Stalin.
Oh my God. Mengele. Go back a little
The fact
bit.
that he had the gall to put it in writing.
Oh, you put it in writing. And
I know.
that means that people read it over and over again. They could. You know, when you say it,
Right.
it goes
Had
into
to
the...
get vaccinated, but
Go ahead.
he did say the department had to cancel surgery, saying not being vaccinated put staff and others at risk of infection, and he called it irresponsible. Dr. Raul Pino has been the face of COVID-19 in Orange County, standing side by side Mayor Jerry Demings during the 100-plus news conferences at the county since the pandemic began.
So please, please get your child vaccinated.
But tonight, the respected health official is now on paid administrative leave. Sources tell us it came after this email he sent to Orange County Health Department employees on January 4th. In it, he wrote, quote, "I have a hard time understanding how we can be in public health and not practice it." He had an analyst run vaccination data for the employees, saying there were 568 active staff members at the FDOH, and only 77 had received a booster, going on to say that only 38.5% had 2 shots at all. Writing, quote, "I am sorry, but in the absence of reasonable and real reasons, it is irresponsible not to be vaccinated. We have been at this for 2 years. We were the first to give vaccines to the masses. We have done more than 300,000, and we're not even at 50%. Pathetic." The Department of Health issuing a statement tonight saying, quote, "As the decision to get vaccinated is a personal medical choice that should be made free from coercion and mandates from employers," adding that the Florida Department of Health is conducting an inquiry to determine
if any laws were broken in this case.
Wow.
Coerced me by calling me irresponsible.
You coerced me. You looked at broad health data on vaccination rates in government entities. HIPAA violation. You questioned my faith. You made me feel guilty. You made me feel like I was being irresponsible. That's a crime in Florida.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to concerns that the mandate be used by corporations to trim people out, but in a field of public health, I'm sorry, like, you should practice public health.
Oh my God, you and your liberal dogma. Sorry. How about freedom? How about I practice freedom?
That's what we're doing.
I practice freedom on my patients. I mean, I just don't. I just don't understand, frankly, how. I mean, like, I hear stuff like this and think like, oh, okay, well, this is going to bring the revolt of like people in Florida will be freaking out about this.
Nope.
Yep.
No, it's the opposite.
It is.
They're freaked out at Dr. Raul Pino.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Raul Pino.
He called them pathetic. Do you know what that feels like?
He didn't even call them pathetic. He said it's pathetic.
Oh well, he called it's pathetic. Do you know what that feels like for it?
Because, right.
How about I have some empathy for it?
And you're. That's very progressive of you.
Yeah, thank you. Unbelievable. Oh God, what should we? This is pretty funny. One American News Network mentioned this the other day. DirecTV is not going to renew their contract. And apparently, there's no way to know for sure, but in the context of a lawsuit, I think a deposition filed by maybe the CEO or the owners of One American News Network said that something like 90% of their revenue comes from the carriage fees that they get from DirecTV.
Yes. So bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Which is owned by AT&T.
Yeah.
And Dan Ball basically decided it's time for him to go out in a blaze of glory. And, and I got to say, like, I, in general, have no problem with this, but I like the fact that the right is, and good thing he's not doing this in Florida, because this would be public shaming and calling them, he might be breaking some type of Florida legislation. But here he is basically asking his audience to...
Deputizing them.
Yeah, deputizing them. Here we go. We've all, I should say, I'm sure you've all heard that campaign like, hey, this cable system is kicking us off.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to see the Chargers game unless you have Fox Sports on there, or Google
no more
TV.
corncob TV.
YouTube TV is in a fight with Disney, and you're not going to be able to see Channel 5 or something like that. This is sort of like that.
Call your cable service provider, right?
Exactly. You don't have Crackle on your cable service? Call them and say, I want my Crackle TV now. Yeah, not exactly.
And oh, by the way, I'll just add this at the end. If you've got any dirt on Mr. Kennard, I'd love to see it and put it on this program. You bring me concrete evidence of whatever it may be, cheating on his taxes, cheating on his wife, saying racial slurs towards white people. Folks do that. Whatever it may be, find it for me. Bring it, and we'll air it. Everybody's got dirty little sins and secrets they're hiding. And this man deserves to have them exposed for what he's doing to not only this network, the owners, the hundreds of employees, but you, the viewers, who want a fair and honest and truthful voice. Don't let them do this to you, folks, by taking...
Oh yeah, Dan, I got a video of him saying the word honky. How much you want for it?
He said, get that white guy off my lawn. That's pretty good.
You probably should have done that off air and earlier in the we're getting thrown off AT&T.
Oh no, yeah. Well, once the decision's already final, then we got to go after this guy.
The sad part is no one's going to see it.
Yeah,
because they're only going to be online. But the other sad part is, what would you guess is the median or average age of a One America News?
81.
I would say yes. Well, like deep into their 80s, I would say. And they, I mean, if it's not on Facebook, I don't think they're seeing it. I don't think they're finding it.
Oh no, absolutely not. Although I guess it's still on for a small period of time, but I don't know if blackmail flies on OAN TV.
Hey, listen, let me just say, if you have any information on Dan Ball, any type of sins he's ever committed, I mean, we all have our little sins. If he's cheated on somebody or cheated somebody, or how does he tip? Does he tip well?
Also, has he said a racial slur about any race of people?
Yeah, well, we won't discriminate, unlike OAN. If it's not just against white people, we'll bear it.
We'll take it if he says any type of racial slur against anybody, any type of discriminating. Let us know. We'll air it, because as he signs off of most of his audience, they deserve to know, and he deserves to know. So,
yeah, One American News. Yeah, it looks like it's definitely 65 plus.
Yeah.
What a gift to them that they're so this guy Kennard was responsible for shuttering them on DirecTV. The fact that he's black, I mean, come on, that's like Dan Ball's eating that up.
Oh, is that I didn't pick up on that. There you go. Yeah, well, I mean, that can happen. People do that. People do that. That's pretty awesome.
Candace Owens.
That's gonna hurt them against their, like, Newsmax is gonna eat them up now. I mean, they should just merge at this point.
Yeah. Maybe that's the plan.
Newsmax is too establishment for them.
Yeah. Also, who's getting sued? Which one of those is getting sued?
Fox backed off first, then Newsmax. OAN's the one that's.
Oh, are they getting sued?
They're like the.
Oh, all right. That's gonna hurt. All right. So which Candace Owens should we do? The number 5 or number 6?
I was thinking of 6. Yeah.
Okay. So good news, ladies and gentlemen. Do you remember the Freedom phone?
Oh yeah, wasn't that just
Still waiting on
basically
mine.
the off-brand Android that they said just called a Freedom phone from China? That was it, right?
That was it, yeah. It was hardware basically from Chinese manufacturers, and they said it was good for privacy.
Yeah.
It's good for privacy.
And you can use an app store there to get all of their banned apps.
Okay, and so here is Candace Owens. She ordered this Freedom phone 8 months ago.
Wow, what a supply chain, right, Biden?
It's like waiting on a Tesla.
Yeah, here it is, and she got it. This is her Instagram.
Oh, wow. Look who finally got her second phone, Freedom phone. It was all right. It was just only like, an 8-month delay and everyone emailing me thinking that it was a scam, but actually it was a supply chain crisis. Anyways, it came in and yeah, I would never direct you guys towards a scam. It looks like everything finally shipped. So yeah, there we are. Here we go. Shout out to everyone who waited those 8 long months for their phones. I know some people quite literally could not afford to. It's a lot of money to not get anything returned for a long time. And I know it's definitely not what Eric intended. Oh, look, you can see my reflection, or what I intended when I shared it. But, I still really believe in Freedom Phone and Eric Finman. So, oh, look, my reflection's still there. What's up?
Your reflection's still there. What are you filming that Freedom Phone?
Well, I guess it's not a scam. There it is.
Could you turn
it's
it
her
on?
second phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I personally only have one phone, but if a phone was so good and it was really protecting my privacy, as the Bitcoin millionaire kid Finman says, I would make it my first phone. Probably.
Yeah, it's weird that she makes it her second phone. It is a little bit weird.
Does she have kids? That's the phone that you give to your kids to play, Angry Birds on or whatever. That's going to be that phone's purpose.
I like how she is. She would never steer anybody to a scam, and she's honest because she's not going to tell you it's actually the phone that she uses. It is the burner phone that I have, or maybe it's the one I don't even ever turn on. Really, it becomes not a scam when it shows up.
So influencers have now, there's a new legislation that they have to disclose when they're getting paid to promote a product. Just wondering if there's any odd stuff going on there where Candace Owens may not be publicly disclosing her relationship with the Freedom Phone manufacturers. I'm just saying. Oh,
I think she probably has already said that she was paid, right, to promote it.
Supposed to say it in every ad.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I'm just looking up, they have the Patri app, the uncensorable app store. As pointed out by XDA's Michelle Maraman on Twitter, the phone's Patri app store appears to be no more than a rebranded Aurora store and open source client for the Google Play Store. So
it's basically just like open source, and they just rebranded it. They put like a skin over it, essentially.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much. Did Candace say how much she paid for it? I mean, it's basically $500 smartphone, not great specs.
And you can run it. You run it on the AT&T and T-Mobile networks here in the United States. So I don't know how they are able to secure your privacy when it's running through the typical 5G that's in your vaccine, right?
Emma,
yeah.
Freedom is a feeling, not something that you can measure in privacy or megabytes or
who's getting to look at your data
or who's looking at your data. Sometimes it's more like a feeling.
It's the feeling of sitting behind a truck, right, and holding that Freedom Phone in your hand. That's a tangible feeling, but it's also freedom.
And it's so important that you can afford to wait 8 months to get it.
I mean, I can't wait till
that's
we
like
see
couch lead time. That's like a custom couch.
Supply chain. Sure. If it was a supply chain issue, why did it take 8 months to get to everybody?
Also, yeah, I mean, supply chains, because I guess it is difficult to source from China.
I'm sure,
it's possible.
I'm sure it's a supply chain problem because it's coming from China, and it is just like other phones, and they are behind in line of the other phone companies that are getting the exact same phone but branding it in a different way.
Yeah, I mean,
that Freedom Phone you're holding in your hand, it is also probably being sold on a brand called like "We Spy on You" phone.
Or Yumadigi, I think, is the original Chinese retail.
We get all your information phone. Is also, it's just that translates into English into Freedom Phone.
I guess it's manufactured in Hong Kong, so there you go.
There you go. Calling from a 614 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, hi Sam. Pleasure to meet you, sir. This is Aaron calling from the east side of Manhattan, right across the river from you.
Aaron from the east side of Manhattan. What's on your mind?
So I remember you mentioned briefly at the end of your show the other day something about dating a Republican. And I, having recently ended my first relationship with someone who was a Republican, I wanted to offer some personal experience for anyone looking to get into that sort of situation. So,
all right. And this is sort of like, now, I just wanted to say up front, we're not going to give you any grief. We're not going to kink shame around here.
Mm-hmm.
All right? We're just going to...
Oh, no, I understand. No, I am a socialist, and I figured I would try and, pardon my French, fuck my way into the Each One Teach One brigade, but it was a bit of a... it was an interesting effort.
I want to hear about this.
Basically, I work as a pianist on the east side of Manhattan. I play piano and I sing at a couple bars.
Okay.
And I have a lot of friends for patrons, and invited one out for a drink and became.
I got to imagine being a piano player on Upper East Side bars, you will meet a lot of Republican women.
Oh yeah. I mean,
a lot of those jewelry-clad 50-something divorcees asking for the Phil Collins songs they banged to in their first marriage. It's a good time.
I'm dying to know if you've run into like Ramona Singer up there, because that's a Republican you could probably bang.
No, but it's for someone to have Asperger's syndrome and get paid to be the center of attention, it's a phenomenal job. Yeah. So, so what happened was, like, this girl, she's honestly, like, I want to give some caveats. This girl is phenomenal. I love her company. On the surface, like hanging out with her friends, getting a drink with her, it was fantastic. Like, cosmetically in the front of it, it was a phenomenal relationship. But this is why I'm glad I studied Marx in college, because, like, this is literally the essence of dialectical materialism, like the whole idea of looking at history and humanity with our, like, confrontations with our inherent contradictions. Like, how can we talk about democracy while we're capitalists? How can we talk about freedom while we own slaves? And I feel like I was able to share all the surface stuff with her. Like, I write music, or I was able to play, like, I would play piano and she played violin, and that was great. Or, like, we'd watch a movie. But every time I tried to get to, like, the deeper side of things, I felt like I had to defend myself and, justify it in a way that, like, I didn't feel like that was worth that portion of my time. And I think some people, it was my first relationship. We were more than a decade apart in age. And it was strange because, like, I really do care for her, but and it's not like a particular policy position that made the decision final, but it was more of like we had completely different ways of viewing conflict, and it's something that has given me so much inspiration, and it's something I have to justify to my girlfriend, and I can't do that,
So it was more like...
Sorry to ramble on.
No, it's fascinating to me. So it was like more like worldview stuff, or what? Like, or was it that like, when you got into intimate details of your life, like you realize, and by intimate I mean like sort of emotionally intimate stuff, that you just realize, like, whoa, your perspective on this is really fundamentally different.
There were some things that were little moments that elicited anger that I didn't expect to. Like when we were at a Rangers game, and I said how I love getting to belt out "Oh Canada." I think it's a dope national anthem, and she got, like, mad at me. And I was like, what? It's better than the Star-Spangled Banner. And it, like, elicited real frustration in a way I didn't expect it to.
Well, now that is not even, like, you're not even getting anywhere near, like, Marxism or socialism at that point.
No, she's a nationalist.
But it's funny, and it's funny because she did say to me, she's like, you explained socialism in a way to me that, like, was better than most people have. And that to me is kind of exciting. Like,
Right.
It makes me feel like maybe there's a way to communicate this effectively. But like, it was like whenever I try to talk about like, you know, like the essence of this stuff, I wasn't sure if it was hard to play a song about injustice and know that she only kind of half got it.
I see. So part of it was just also your awareness of where she was at. So part of it was your projection.
Yeah, I watched my brother in a relationship with a very, very nice girl, watched it deteriorate over 2 years. And I think if I hadn't watched that, and I figured I knew things were going to bother me 6 months down the line. And I do feel, honestly, kind of awful. Honestly, I feel a little remorseful talking about it so publicly, and I'm sorry about that.
Well, that's all right. We don't know who you're talking about, and it's just nobody cares, with all due respect, that it's you or her. It's more just the idea of it.
Such a genuine, kind person, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't hold back something to someone who I'm supposed to be that intimate with.
Well, I think that's a lesson, I think, for some people, because I mean, I could never be in a relationship with a Republican, even though I think I dated conservative guys in the past, but you can also like allow for grace for people who maintain some of those relationships, even if it doesn't make sense to you. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Like, and this is someone some people tell me it's impossible, but like, I want her company as a friend because I love getting to communicate this stuff to people who don't quite understand it. And like, I don't want it to be something, I just know that that's not something that I want to spend time doing with the person I call my girlfriend. That's still something, an effort that's worth making with other people though. You know?
Right. Well, you know, I think on the upside, I think it's pretty healthy to have that level of awareness of, you know, that you're running up against something that is going to be problematic down the road. So
I appreciate that. And by the way, it is an honor to be on the phone with my celebrity crush, Emma. You are a socialist warrior goddess. I admire the hell out of you. And all of you, if you ever want to come to Mimi's Piano Bar on the east side of Manhattan, you're always welcome. I'm there every weekend. So
right.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate the call.
I don't know if I'm a celebrity, but that's well, thank you.
All right. Well, it's an honor to be on the phone with you guys. I'm sorry to ramble.
I think you did.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thanks.
All right.
Interesting. All right. Final call of the day. Calling from a 773 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This be Uchi Wally, man.
Uchi Wally. How are you? What's on your mind today?
I'm so glad that I got in today after waiting an hour and a half.
Yes. Well, we had a bunch of people waiting an hour and a half. So,
well, I thank Jesus, the Son of God, that I got in after Bob because his call was more important than mine.
Right. I understand. And, you know, Jesus being the archetype. Yeah,
and he did die for our sins.
And for Bob to get in before me. That's why he died. Anyway, my lunch is getting cold downstairs, so I'm going to make it quick, but I've got two things. The first is my younger brother, I mentioned before, I converted from a Jimmy Dore TYT fan into a Majority Report fan. I ended yesterday.
Nice.
And he said he told our Stories family about his story about Phyllis Schlafly, so I thought I'd follow up by topping him. About 2 years before he was born, my brother entered a contest from the Daughters of American Revolution.
Wait.
You're supposed to.
Did you say 2 years before he was born?
Before my younger brother was born. He was born in 1981. This story's about 1979, 1980.
Who entered the contest?
My older brother.
Oh, okay. I got confused. I was like, wait a second.
This is my younger brother. I am yesterday. My older brother, 2 years before he was born, entered a contest.
Okay.
So he won it, and it was a Daughters of American Revolution contest. And because it was in Alton, Phyllis Schlafly was the local luminary. They had give the award. Now I didn't.
Very on brand for the DAR.
But exactly. But I didn't go to the award ceremony, but my brother, having won the essay contest, did, and my mother. And when they came home, they told me that Phyllis Schlafly was unacceptably unable to hide her surprise that a little Negro child won the essay contest. Now, that's a secondhand story, but they both agreed on it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like, how did she express her disbelief?
Why?
I that's all they told me. And
Look
I didn't
at you.
ask anymore.
Look at you. Well, okay.
Yeah.
You
so
sure you're
that,
at the right
that,
place?
Exactly. So my other thing is Monday was MLK Day. I know you missed this because they deleted
politicize it. Do not politicize it.
The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire tweeted at Nicole Hannah-Jones. She tweeted the MLK quote, "It's obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds." You've probably heard that quote before.
Mm-hmm.
She tweeted it out, and the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire replied, "Black people in America get special access to essential drugs, receive special federal funding due to race, and are first in line for every college and every job. America isn't in debt to black people. If anything, it's the other way around."
Cool.
I mean, I guess anybody can get a Twitter account, but it's amazing that there's any type of like institution that exists out there where someone would tweet that out.
Yeah.
That sounds like the Minnesota Republican Party.
It sounds like Candace Owens. She said like the same thing, hasn't she?
But she's doing it for, I guess, for money. I mean, I guess,
Yeah,
they're doing
grifter.
it for money. Yeah.
But they all like take their
But
signals from those.
I'm just surprised how much smarter they are than me. I've been black 48 years on this planet, and I didn't know I was first in line for every college and every job.
Yeah, well,
as a matter of fact, I thought
You got to get out of line. That's the problem, Moochie. Well, you're just standing in line,
Yeah.
and instead of taking the next step, but you're in front of the line. That's why everybody has to walk around you.
I was actually, with my tiny Negroid brain, I thought that I'd actually gone to apply for jobs and didn't get them.
Yep. No.
I just didn't know.
You're not manifesting. You're not manifesting.
Sometimes they give it to the second person in line.
The second Negro in line.
Exactly, of course. Well, I appreciate the phone call. I missed that that Libertarian Party from New Hampshire. Well,
yeah.
All right, man. Thanks for the call.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that is the phone call portion of our program today. Somewhat employed Zoomer. Great show today. I feel like you folks are really hurting a good stride in the new year.
Hitting, probably.
Well, they wrote hurting, so I don't know. Eric from Iowa writes, Dan Crenshaw is what happens when Dave Rubin becomes a Navy SEAL. Geraldo Rivera, hey Sam, don't underestimate your appeal. I always listen to the top 8 conservative influencer. We should have probably made more out of that, shouldn't we have? I mean, I feel like I should be contacted by the...
Do some YouTube ads.
Well, I understand why there's no reporter out there trying to like go and dig into this and find out like how it is like.
Didn't Mediaite pick it up or whatever? Like I saw, I was on vacation.
Somebody, I think Raw Story maybe wrote something about it. I think like Bob Brigham asked me about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, why wouldn't, I think some reporter should go and find out maybe why I should do it. Like call those people and just be like, how did this happen? In fact, Bradley, we find out the name of those 2 people. I'm going to call them and find out how this happened. I'm curious.
Probably some intern that just like saw stuff with Crowder.
No, because that was done before Crowder.
Oh.
This was done in December of 2020.
Okay, well, saw other stuff of you dunking on conservatives.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. But... Or maybe I am that influential with conservatives.
Maybe.
I think they polled, like people like Candace and Dave, and asked, "Who are you most afraid of?" And you know,
who influences you?
Yeah,
to hide.
Rory Gatto. Every year since 2014, Elon Musk has said that next year we'll have 100% autonomous self-driving cars. Where I come from, Bergen County, New Jersey, we still have blue laws.
Bergen County, yes.
Miguel. Very consistent that civil rights issue of our time doesn't involve white people at all. That was when Geraldo was saying it's black on black crime. The blocking of selling alcohol on Sunday are often called blue laws. They were popular on the East Coast, and many states still have them. They used to restrict general commerce on Sunday, and actually, historically, labor unions supported these laws. It's been held up by the Supreme Court numerous times for secular reasons to give mail carriers day off. Breaking Minnesota testing center is being sued for faking test results. Ugh. Framanon. Just a reminder of why NPR should be low on people's priority list of medias to donate to. On the Politics podcast yesterday, they actually spent time discussing why cinema shouldn't be primaried and that our political posturing truly represents the purple state of Arizona.
Yeah, I hope our audience doesn't need that lesson, but there are better places to put your money than NPR.
Oh, my God. And it's also just incredibly stupid because it's like, well, then why not let the people of Arizona decide? Death to America. I feel like the video description of my previous question captured the essence of my question last time. I don't think it's a good idea to improve the U.S. for either its elites or citizens economically or on civil liberties, except for Native Americans, and not on the accelerationist sense either. If the U.S. was a land of poverty, like, say, Somalia, wouldn't the military lack the resources to uphold the empire and cause all this ruin?
If it's a land of poverty, it's a land of poverty by choice because it compels people to labor. It's not the same kind of poverty as like Somalia has.
I'm not sure I follow what he's saying.
We literally create a significant unemployment population in order to maintain our structure.
Alan Greenspan said, I've never been able, I've lost track of that quote, but it was something to the effect of, like, part of its job is to create a certain amount of anxiety amongst the workforce. Green New Deal now. Do you think the U.S. should defend Russia/Taiwan in the event of an invasion?
It wouldn't be Russia. We're allied with the Ukraine.
I think no.
No, I don't think so. No. I mean, listen. I think that we could go to Russia and say, "Here's the deal. You need to create a 5-mile buffer zone. You cannot go. You cannot invade, and we will not admit Ukraine into NATO." Expanding NATO is the last thing we should be doing as far as I'm concerned. Jay Tingle, Colonel Kuntz, not to be curt. Even Conrad would not have gone there. It's Colonel Kurtz. Okay, sorry. I wish you'd bring up John Huston's The Man Who Would Be King. You know what? That's funny because I do remember that. It was with Sean Connery, and I love that movie. The movie describes an English street-level criminal who's erroneously attributed God status in a mountain community in India is undone by hubris. The movie adds the conceit of using Kipling, the story's author, in a framing device. I don't have time to go into the story, but at one point, the New Yorker magazine had assigned a reporter, they had a best of, or the next issue. And they were going to name me the next Albert Brooks. This is back in like 96 or 97. And it's a long story, but they signed John Lahr, who was a famous theater critic, to write about me. And I did not get along with John Lahr. And among other things, I had done a bit at this alternative comedy room that referenced The Man Who Would Be King. And also, I think it was like, who is it, Wittgenstein or Weber, who I can't remember which sociologist was like, once you start to study a people, you've ruined it because your influence affects it. And I can't even remember what the bit was, but I sort of worked in The Man Who Would Be King. And, you know, when he got shot with the arrow in his belt, that's what they thought he was God. A godlike, because somebody shot him with an arrow and it hit his belt and they didn't realize, and he was fine, and then they thought he was God. So I think it's something like that. Anyways, I combined these two things into a bit that he felt was the worst example of stand-up in the history of stand-up. And
that's an accomplishment in and of itself.
So instead of writing about me being the next Albert Brooks, because it was based on Who's the Caboose, he wrote that I was the worst stand-up in the history of stand-up. After seeing me perform once.
Okay.
And Tina Brown, it was a guest editor, and and Tina Brown would not sort of buck John Lahr, and so I did not get named the next Albert Brooks in the New Yorker magazine, and my career was on a very different trajectory than it would have been.
That is such a swing. That, I mean, from this is going to be this amazing profile. It's going to take my career to the next level.
The problem was at one point, it had to do with he followed me around on auditions, and we went into an audition, and I'm coming in with John Lahr, who is a famous theater critic.
Yeah.
And the casting agent knew this, and so the casting agent treated me in a markedly different way than I was treated at other auditions.
In what way?
I just like, hey Sam, come on in, like just being like really excited for me to be there.
Hyped you up.
And that's what made me write that bit about the man who would be king and this sociologist who, like, the existence of a third party, changes everything. The observation. And so we walked out of there, and at one point he's saying, wow, he had some weird British, quasi-British accent. And he was like, wow. His father was Bert Lahr from Wizard of Oz. He was the lion.
Oh.
And John Lahr was a big Bill Hicks fan. And he says to me, he said, and I had no idea who he was. I mean, I vaguely knew, but I didn't care. And he's like, how did you do in there? And I said, I should tell you, that's not what happens to me. Okay? Because you're there, and that's what changed that whole thing. And he goes, how does it feel to be hot? And that was not a thing that I could respond to well in that era of my life.
Because it was so stupid?
I said, wait, are you from People magazine or from the New Yorker?
Jesus.
And that was not a good thing to say.
Why would you do that?
Well, I mean, I've reflected.
This man's fate's in your hand. I mean, your hands are in this man. Jesus.
Your fate's in his hands.
I try to wait.
I'm not gonna lie. I reflected on that moment, after that, and thought there could have been other ways to respond to that. I was new to that type of publicity, and it took me about 10 years to realize you don't have to respond in the most truthful manner in situations that could fundamentally help you long term. It took me a long time to learn that lesson.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But and now with time, for a long time none of that bothered me.
Yeah.
But now, when I look back and I go I would have probably had a very different career had the New Yorker magazine, in its the next issue, said I was the next Albert Brooks. I probably would have had a different career trajectory.
Yeah, but
it's
not about being honest. It's just about being letting a stupid comment go.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt it was fundamentally dishonest for me not to let him know that I thought that was a stupid comment. And, that...
You need to go to, finishing school or something like
that. Well,
that.
I've learned that lesson. Okay. I learned that lesson. I mean, it took me about another 10, 12 years, maybe a little more, to learn that lesson, But I would say for young people out there, learn that lesson early. But I did not. I
like that story.
Probably about a half a dozen stories that are not too dissimilar.
Of moments where you could have not screwed yourself
I told
over.
the reporter I had some feeling about somebody who worked at Saturday Night Live that was probably not the most appropriate.
Will you tell me off air who it was?
That was Marcy Klein.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think I said she doesn't know her ass from her elbow.
Mm-hmm.
And that got reported, and then I got heard back that I would never, ever, ever be on Saturday Night Live.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I was like, fine. I don't give a shit about that. There's other stories. I mean, I made a couple of mistakes. I don't say mistakes. Lapse in judgment.
Okay.
All right. I don't even remember what that was from. Oh yeah, The Man Who Would Be King. Yeah. All right. Rad Cheatin'. Dude, on your filibuster rant, you brought your full Jamie. Blow it up, burn it down, whatever it was. If she saw it, she was proud. Or like me, she was wondering where you go from here. Bitchin' is about as effective as a Stein vote. I mean, I find it a little bit disillusioning. But I mean, yes, this is the best that they can do, but I just don't think it's going to be terribly effective. I think the mistake was made months ago. So, all right, 5 more of these. Louis, having anyone other than AOC as leader of the Progressive Caucus is like the New England Patriots hiring Bill Belichick to be their special teams coach. Okay, even flow. Anytime I hear about people raging against critical race theory, I think about how weird it would be if, when I was in high school, I learned about the attacks on Freedom Riders. Instead of thinking, wow, that's a messed up thing that happened, I thought, hey, now, I had nothing to do with that. Excuse me, Emma, but you just used the word blackmail. Hearing the word black makes me feel very uncomfortable, and you will be hearing from my lawyer. Bernadette. I've been stuck in a bus for 3 hours because of a snowstorm, and I'm anxious to get home. I'm glad I'm listening to you while sitting through this madness. The bus is standing still again. I have no idea when I get home. All buses in the city have been ordered to stop, and they have no idea when they'll start again. I'll never get home, will I? I'm considering walking home from here, 2 hours out in the freezing cold, and my battery is almost out. I don't know where you are.
I'm so sorry, but yeah.
Oh, they're in Norway. She's in Norway.
Oh, go to Vigeland Park.
Oh, all right. Well, fancy.
I've actually never been to Norway, even though I should go to that at some point.
Matty Moron was never much interested in the Kennedy stuff until I started understanding the anti-democratic sovereignty exercised by the security state over the past couple of years. Much of the work by the JFK skeptics has been vindicated by declassified documents. Aaron Good's American Exception lays out a lot of this, especially via Peter Dale Scott's work and scholarship. The JFK assassination is a useful window into the anti-democratic character of the American empire.
I agree, and I think that's the most important part of the exercise. I think, contrary to a lot of conspiracy theories, which are disempowering, this one actually gets you to look at some of the and study like the national security state.
The Chris Lepaco, if we can't talk about bad things that have happened in the past with regard to race, I guess that means conservatives are finally going to drop the black-on-black crime talking points. Future crime. Corncob coffin. When the CIA gets confronted about Kennedy assassination, I didn't do shit, I didn't rig shit.
It's a reference. It's a reference to the show I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson that I referenced earlier, knowing you wouldn't get it, but
I didn't get it. All right.
Yeah.
And the final I am of the day. Penny from New Mexico says the prime directive from Star Trek. Matt, Bradley, Emma, good job today. See you. Oh, Emma will be here tomorrow. I'll be here Friday.
Yeah.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie.